Good morning. Today I am discussing the chapter that is Fundamentals of Object Oriented Programming. In this chapter, we are going to study what is Java, what is Object Oriented Programming, and what are all the difference between Object Oriented Programming and Procedure Oriented Programming, and what are all the concept of OOPs. The first one. Now we can discuss what is OOPs. OOPs stand for Object Oriented Programming. Then earlier programming languages uses procedural programming. The procedural programming is about writing a procedures or a methods that perform the operation on a data. It is nothing but the sequence of a methods and functions that are going to solve the problems. While object-oriented programming is nothing but creating the objects that contain both the data and methods. The procedure-oriented programs we can use a only set of methods, but in object-oriented programming it deals with only class and object concepts. Here in procedure-oriented programming we use the pointer concept, but in object-oriented programming we cannot use pointer concept. Next, introduction to Java. Java was developed by the Sun Microsystem in 1991 and it is later acquired by the Oracle Corporation. The Oracle Corporation is developed by the James Gosling and Patrick Newton. And Java is a simple programming language. We can write the programs very easily, and also it helps to create the modular programs and reusable code. It means we can use the code once, but we can use that code in many times in Java. And writing the programs and compiling the programs and debugging the programs in Java is very easy. Next, we can see what are all the difference between procedure oriented programming and object oriented programming languages. In procedure oriented programming language, programs are divided into functions, but in object oriented programming language, programs are divided into classes and objects. It means in procedure oriented programs, the procedure oriented programs only deals with methods and algorithms, but object oriented programming deals with classes and objects. And in procedure oriented programming, the emphasis is on doing the things, but in object oriented programming language the emphasis is on data. The procedure oriented programming language poor modeling to real world programs, but object oriented programming is strong module to real world programs. It means we can solve the real world problems in object oriented programming is very easy, but in procedure oriented programming we cannot solve the real world programs. In procedure oriented program, it is not easy to maintain the project if it is too complex, but in procedure oriented programming it is very easy to maintain the project if the project is complex. Then procedure oriented programming language provides poor data security, but in object oriented programming language provide strong data security. Here in procedure oriented programming language data security is poor, but in object oriented programming languages the data security is strong. Next one, in procedure oriented programming it is not extensible programming language, but object oriented programming language the a highly extensible programming language. And in procedure oriented programming language, productivity is very low, but in object oriented programming language, the productivity is very high. And procedure oriented programming do not support for new data types, but object oriented programming support for new data types. In procedure oriented programming, the unity of programming is function, but in object oriented programming language, the unity of programming is only class. The examples for the procedure oriented programming is C, Pascal and Basic and Fortran. The examples for the object oriented programming languages is C++, Java, Oracle, so on. Better, I hope you can understand this. Next, I am going to teach you basic concept of OOPs. Then what are all the concept of OOPs? First one, object, class, abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, message passing. Then we can discuss one by one. Then object. What is object? Here, object is a real world entity which having a similar behavior and characteristics. Object is a real world entity which having similar behavior or characteristic. It may be anything. It may be a pen, it may be a book, it may be a person, it may be anything. The thing which are going to identifiable, those are called objects. And next one, object consists of two things. Object consists of two things, that is properties and task to be performed. Object is a real world entity which having similar behavior, which consists of some properties and task to be performed. And also object is a enhance of class. Object can follow the prototype of the class. The examples for the objects are pen, book, animal, etc. Here the examples for the class. Here the student is a object. The student can have a properties like name, roll number, date of birth, and also student can task the performance like work, read, write and play. Students having some properties and also task to be performed. This is called object. Next, class. Class is a blueprint which object should follow. Class is a blueprint which object should follow, and here object follow the prototype of the class. And also class having the n number of objects. Class having the n number of objects. And also class is a collection of objects having a similar behavior. Class having a object which having similar behavior. Here the best example is student. Student is a class. Here I divided the objects in a three types. ABC is also student, XYZ is also student, and PQR also is a student. These three objects are belonging to student class. Here ABC also have some properties and tasks to be performed, and XYZ is also some task and tasks to be performed, and PQR also and some properties and tasks to be performed. These ABC, XYZ and PQ are the students. These objects are belonging to student class. This is best example for class. If there is a class, there must be a objects. If there is no class, there is no objects. Next, abstraction. Abstraction represents the essential data by hiding the implementation. Abstraction only represents the essential data by hiding the implementation or a background details. The best example for the abstraction is Android application. Here we can download the Android application. It may take any application, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, any application. We can install in mobile or laptop, anywhere you can install. While we are installing the application, it downloaded in the APK format or exe format. Then we are going to install that APK or exe file to application. Once we are installing the application, we are use that application. We are only concentrate on the using that application, but we cannot bother about that APK or exe file format. And the .apk or .exe format including packages and functions and methods, we cannot bother about the APK format. We only concentrate on applications which we can install by that APK format. The example for the abstraction is this: hiding the APK format and only concentrate on installed applications. Hope you all are understand. Next, encapsulation. Encapsulation is a process of combining or binding the variables and methods in a single unit or entity. Combining the variables and methods in a single unit. It means we can write the class. Class includes variables like int a, char b, and also it includes methods like read and write. These methods and variables both are included in class. The variables and methods are included in a class. It means the process of combining variables and methods in a single unit called class. Next, inheritance. Inheritance is a process of acquiring a properties from one class to another class. Inheritance is a process of acquiring a properties from one class to another class. In inheritance, we call parent class as a superclass, child class as a subclass, and also we called parent class as a base class, child class as a derived class. Derived class is a class which is derived from the base class. And types of inheritance. There are mainly, we can use three types of inheritance in Java. Those are single inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance. We can discuss these types of inheritance in further classes. The best example for the inheritance is parents and child relation. The parents class is called superclass or base class. The child class is called as subclass or derived class. The derived class is a class which is derived from parent class or a base class. Next, polymorphism. Polymorphism is a process of same task to be performed in a different way. The process of same task can be performed in a different way. In Java, polymorphism can achieved with the help of two methods. One is method overloading, second one is method overriding. Method overloading is nothing but runtime polymorphism, and method overriding is nothing but compile time polymorphism. Here, the best example for the polymorphism is draw polygon. Draw polygon. The draw polygon method, I can write the draw polygon method, and it divided into three types. Those are squares, rectangles, and triangles. These squares and rectangles and triangles are also called polymorphisms only, but writing the methods are different. The same task can be performed in different way. Draw polygon method can performed in different way, like square, rectangle, and triangle. Polymorphism means same task can be performed in different way. Hope you all are understand. Next, message binding. Only object can communicate with a class member, and object can pass the messages to class members. If class is there, there must be a object. If there is no class, there is no object. We can discuss this message binding and how object can communicate with the class members, and how object can passes the messages to class members in further class. Thank you.